On September 23 of last year, the 41st Brigade, Unit 659 8, arrived to sign a contract via Khinty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug. The atmosphere was tense, filled with anticipation of what was to come. Our first battle took place in Avdiivka, specifically in the Avdiivka area. The terrain was challenging, with bombed-out buildings and debris everywhere. We spent days searching for a strategic position, meticulously handling ammunition and food supplies, and tirelessly evacuating the wounded from February 20 to 28. The most intense combat we experienced involved capturing and clearing fortifications in the Avdiivka area. The fighting was brutal, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Our squad commander, a stern man with piercing eyes, went by the call sign, Omsk. He was 37 to 38 years old, with years of military experience etched into his face. During one of our patrols, we discovered two locals hiding from us in a dilapidated building. At first, we suspected they were enemy spotters, relaying our positions. Oh, what happened next still haunts me. We liquidated them. A euphemism for the brutal beating we inflicted with rifle butts on their arms and legs. The sound of bones cracking still echoes in my nightmares. We found ropes and hung them up for further interrogation. One of them, a man named Zakhar, lost consciousness from the pain and fear. On February 8, 2024, while conducting a sweep in Avdiivka, we made a chilling discovery. In the damp, cold basements of abandoned buildings, we found women and children huddled together. They were using these makeshift shelters to protect themselves from the constant mortar fire that rained down on the city. The fear in their eyes was palpable. In one particular instance, we found a woman clutching two children tightly to her chest. We called them closer. There was a dacha area nearby where we could question them. How did it come to this? The situation became even more horrifying when we discovered a group of 31 to 32 children, all girls aged 11 to 13. The innocence in their faces contrasted sharply with the harsh reality surrounding them. We asked why they hadn't left the war zone. Their response was heartbreaking. "We have nowhere to go." The desperation in their voices was clear. Then, an order came that chills me to the bone even now. "Shut your mouth." We were instructed to tape all three of their mouths with duct tape to keep them quiet. The muffled sobs of the children still haunt my dreams. Our group commander, Omsk, then gave an order that I wish I could forget. Oh, then the worst began. Unspeakable violent acts against children aged 11 to 13. The screams, the pleading, it was unbearable. Afterwards, in an act of ultimate cruelty, they were lined up against a wall and shot on Lisova Street in Avdiivka. The sound of gunfire mixed with the last cries of innocence lost forever. In the same house, we found two more women. They explained, with trembling voices, that they had come home to search for food, as they were living in a basement across the river. They were quickly surrounded and interrogated, and again, by order, violent acts began. The women, aged 38 to 40, were then taken to a basement where, to our horror, we found a 10-year-old girl. What followed was a nightmare that lasted about 2 hours, more violent acts, this time in front of the parents. The screams and pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears. Then, in a final act of brutality, everyone was shot. As for me, I became separated from my unit one night. The darkness was oppressive, and the sounds of distant shelling disoriented me. I couldn't find my group, they had left without me. Panic set in as I realized I was alone in enemy territory. First, I went to the rear, hoping to find friendly forces. Then, I made my way to the trenches we were supposed to go through, praying I would reunite with my unit. I entered a trench, started changing my sweat-soaked clothes, and put my weapon aside for a moment. Suddenly, I found myself surrounded by 3 figures emerging from the shadows. My heart raced as I realized there were no grenades in my backpack, and my weapon was out of reach. Oh, what they did to me! The memory is too painful to recount. Eventually, I was transferred to the second company. 8 long, grueling months passed.